Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody. Thank you for tuning in to another Supatease video, and it's finally here, my Resto Druid PvP guide. It's been a long time coming, and I've been having a great time on Restoration Druid. I just recently went over to the Necrolord Covenant, grinded out some Torghast, picked myself up a nice Restoration Druid Legendary, and now I'm ready to get into the arena and start getting some advice out to you for your own personal success in the arena as well. So I will be fighting a Feral Druid, Discipline Priest, and Beast Mastery Hunter. This, in my mind, is probably the most popular composition in the game. And on the ladder, at least, you're going to see it the most frequently, so it's important to have the best strategies to deal with it. As a Restoration Druid, I really like running Mass Entanglement into Beast Mastery Hunters or Windwalker Monks, particularly because their damage comes from their pets, and there are a lot of pets, and you can root them all with Mass Entanglement. Communicate this with your team, and your team can avoid the pets by running away from them while they're rooted. So this is a very effective strategy. It also prevents the 10% damage reduction that the hunter will provide to anyone near their pet. So it's a double whammy. You're going to remove some defense and a lot of offense by using Mass Entanglement. So particularly this composition can be a bit wild in terms of what targets they're going to go after. On my team, I've got an Enhancement Shaman and an Arms Warrior. So I want to kind of hot them up equally, get my rejuvenations out, and then potentially go into stealth as the other team is going to want to stun me and freezing trap. This way my hots are spread evenly across the team. They're both going to be durable. And now I can kind of wait and see where the enemy is going to be attacking. My partners have abilities to deal with the Hunter's crowd control and the Feral Druid's crowd control through Grounding, Totem, and Overwatch from Intervene. So I do want to be near my teammates so they can assist me with this crowd control. But I am mostly waiting to see when the Feral Druid opens up. And it's kind of my little mini objective to crowd control the Feral as much as I can in the match. So I'm going to want to be utilizing Cyclone to do this. Here I can see that the pets are on my Enhancement Shaman, and this likely means that the Enhancement Shaman is going to be the target. I can also tell because they are now bashed. So I've already loaded up Life Plume, 2 rejuvenations, and I've activated Iron Bark. And I've activated Iron Bark because of this Berserk icon right here. You really want to respect that and activate some defense. However, because I've activated that, they are now switching targets and they're going after my warrior. So when they make a swap like that, you can sometimes split your thorns with your Iron Bark. So Iron Bark my shaman and then thorns my warrior, and then the enemy has to attack into a bad option, right? Here we can see the enemy activating Bestial Wrath. This is a scary cooldown. I'm communicating this to my team, and I'm trying to get them ready to use defensive cooldowns. I also have Nature's Swiftness that I'm sitting in my back pocket, but my Enhancement Shaman tosses out a huge Chain Harvest instead, and that is going to allow my warrior to immediately recover. Here I'm chasing down the Discipline Priest, and this is a common crowd control you can utilize on enemy healers, the Incapacitating Roar into a Cyclone, and I've done my best to try and position out of line of sight of the Feral and the Hunter, although the Hunter I believe could have interrupted me there on the Cyclone, but you still want to try and go for it. The Hunter's interrupt is not that devastating. It's a very small amount of time. Here I've got Adaptive Swarm on my Shaman, so using Swift Mend to extend the duration of it through your legendary is one of your main priorities. You want to be extending Adaptive Swarm, and you want to be extending Cenarian Ward. These are your highest priority. Here I'm stunned into a freezing trap, so I'm communicating to my team that we need some help, and my warrior has used Intimidating Shout. This prevents the Feral from attacking, and stun the Hunter. This prevents the Hunter from attacking, and with all of the enemies in crowd control, we don't need to use a defensive cooldown, and those are kind of your two options as the healer when you get crowd control, is to tell your team to use crowd control or to use defensive cooldowns. You don't generally want to overlap them unless it's absolutely necessary. But in this position, this team is going to be swapping a lot, so you need to get ready for that. Your first priority should be Life Bloom onto whatever target they're swapping to. That's going to be kind of just your highest throughput, your highest immediate throughput. Once they feel kind of committed to a target, then you can activate your Adaptive Swarm. In this position, I've used Thorns. The enemy doesn't want to attack into this likely. If they do, they're going to take a bit of redirected damage. While Thorns is active, I'm sneaking up on the Priest for that crowd control chain, the Incapacitating Roar into Cyclone, and you're going to want to be utilizing this rather than the Feral Affinity in 3v3, in my mind at least, when you're playing with a melee cleave, because you can get swapped to and tunneled down, and it's very important to survive with the Guardian Affinity, and you get your offense through the Incapacitating Roar. Here you can see my Enhancement Shaman now the target. I've activated Cenarian Ward, and I'm kind of always sitting on my Nature's Swiftness Nature Swiftness with Soul of the Forest, so every time after you've Swift Mended, is basically Lay on Hands, and that is my fail-safe. That is my absolute last resort heal, and I like to sit on that. But Cenarian Ward and Adaptive Swarm, I will kind of just toss those out. I want them out for maximum healing efficiency, and I'll just sit on the Nature Swiftness. Now they're going over to my Enhancement Shaman, so I need to switch Life Plume. I've used Mass Entanglement here during Bestial Wrath onto the Hunter's Pets. You want to be looking for that red icon if you're ever going to use Mass Entanglement onto the Hunter's Pets. This is also removing the damage reduction from the Hunter while we're going for an attack, so good utilization there. Here you can see I've activated Tranquility, but I didn't continue channeling it. You only use Tranquility to get the extra heal over time effect to benefit from your mastery and increased healing. Here I anticipated a stun and activated Iron Bark, so you can kind of predict crowd control, activate Iron Bark, activate Cenarian Ward. And in this position, the Feral Druid's trying to crowd control me, so I can use Incapacitating Roar on the Feral Druid and then Cyclone the Feral Druid out of it. And you do often want to look to get that crowd control chain. It's going to be the best way to remove damage and remove healing from the opposing team. In this position, I've used Wild Charge aggressively. I'm rooting the Hunter in place and using Stampeding Roar to sprint my Warrior. My team is having a tough time connecting to the Hunter, and because I'm running Guardian Affinity, I'm not too worried about being a target, so I wanted to get in there and help my team. However, they are using Bestial Wrath, so this is a scary time during the Hunter's cooldowns, and I may want to use a Mass Entangle, although, again, I'm kind of using it when the Hunter isn't stunned. This way, the pets aren't just going to be next to the target, right? If my team is attacking the Hunter in one spot, the pets will still be able to hit them. So you do kind of want to wait until the Hunter starts kiting and trying to avoid your melee attackers before going for a Mass Entanglement. Now you can see the Hunter after this barrier wants to get close to me for a trap, so I'm running far away. I use a Swift Mend to extend my Life Bloom, and then I drop a Mass Entanglement. And this is more or less just a route then to prevent them from jumping on top of me. Because now you can see the Hunter uses Disengage, but the Hunter's disengaged away from his pets. He's not taking reduced damage, and his pets are no longer attacking. Here I utilize that Wild Charge again with Ursul's Vortex, and the Hunter tries to snipe me on the trap there. It was almost just luck that that trap didn't hit me and hit my Shaman, but I'm using Wild Charge and Ursul's Vortex and Stampeding Roar to help my melee DPS connect to the target, and I like doing this just because it's fun, but I also think it is beneficial to your team. Here I saw an opportunity to Cyclone the Feral Druid. There was no counter shot available from the Hunter, and the Feral Druid is too far away. And again, anytime you can control the Feral is a good time to control the Feral. The Feral is likely going to be doing more healing than their healer, so by cycloning the Feral Druid like this, you can see the amount of pressure we're getting with the Hunter going to 20 to 30% health. So focusing most of your crowd control is a good idea. Here I tried to Incap Roar, and you can start to see why you need to practice and play Resto Druid. This is my first session in quite a long time on Resto Druid. I haven't played Discipline Priest for a while, and I really needed to feel out the range on the Incapacitating Roar because you can easily miss it. So you do want to make sure that you're standing as close as possible when you go for it. Here I see a stun on my Shaman, so I activate my Adaptive Swarm and my Thorns. That's always a good trigger to see where the damage is going to be going, is whether or not the target is stunned, which I've got with an add-on showing the box next to it. But this team is also splitting their damage, which is a great strategy into a Restoration Druid. This is going to tax my mana. This is where I had a last resort heal, and I split my cooldowns, right? I've got Adaptive Swarm on my Shaman, but I Nature Swiftness my Warrior. If I had Nature Swiftness my Shaman, I would have had nothing to rely on my Warrior. So actively thinking about where you're putting cooldowns. You don't want to put all your eggs in one basket. I can't invest all in the Shaman, right? Here, Bestial Wrath is active, so I'll use Mass Entanglement. Unfortunately, we have swapped to the Feral Druid, but the Feral Druid does end up running out of range of the pets, so the damage reduction and the damage bonus is lost a bit, but he does go back to the pets, realizing that damage reduction is there, and that's kind of the way that your enemy can outplay you. But if they stand still, then your melee attackers will be able to hit them. Here is Berserk, once again from the Feral Druid. So instead of using Iron Bark, we could use Die by the Sword, and this then enables me to use Iron Bark on a different target if they swap, right? So that I've made this call, and the Berserk will line up really well with the Die by the Sword anyways, and this allows my Warrior to play very aggressive. Here I use Ursul's Vortex on the Hunter's Disengage. That's a nice counterplay as well. I call for War Banner, and I think I was hit by an Incapacitating Shout actually prior to this, Incap Roar, and it put me on DR for the freezing trap. So sometimes it's better to be next to them so that your teammates can help you, and you might accidentally even get put on crowd control DR. I love using Innervate and and Overgrowth together. That's a very expensive heal that gets you full heal over time effects, but you can see I've split my heals again. I Overgrowth the Shaman, but I Ironbark Cenarian warded my Warrior, and by splitting my resources like this, because the enemy is attacking 2 targets, my team is going to be a lot more stable. Then while they're stabilized with defensive cooldowns, I start pushing for crowd control on the enemy healer. I try going for Cyclones. I needed to feel out my haste a little bit. I went a little bit too soon on that Cyclone, and that's going to be entirely dependent on how much haste you have, and something that you're just going to need to practice. Even for myself in 2v2 is timing a Cyclone into a Cyclone, right? Because the target's immune. If you do it too early, your clone is immune. If you do it too late, they get something off. And that's all about just knowing how long your Cyclone cast time is, and getting comfortable with it. And having not played with this amount of haste in Resto Druid in a while is something that I was readjusting to. Here, anytime you can, Cyclone the Feral. The Hunter was out of range of Interrupt. Here I'm getting ready to use Mass Entangle or Wild Charge on the Hunter. This controls the pets away from the Hunter, and I sprint my Warrior. So I'm always looking to add some extra utility to my melee DPS to sprint them, to get them into the fight, to try and pin the enemy attackers, looking for Cyclones, and splitting up my heal over time effects. The only other thing I could have done in this match is look for opportunities to drink. You can see my mana is not in the best spot, but it is better than the priests. I think that if I was in a position where I was behind the priest, I would have been looking for drinks, but you don't really want to be in that position. Now with the priest at 10%, we're watching them and stopping them from drinking. The Hunter jumps to me for stun. I tell my teammates, hey, I'm in a stun, get ready. And my Warrior drops down a War Banner. This reduces the incoming crowd control of the freezing trap to an amount that's really not going to allow the enemy team to really kill anything, and they have to spend time killing the War Banner. After I come out of the banner, I activate Cenarian Ward. I see the priest chasing me with sprint, and that's why I'm moving away from the priest. I just want to waste as much of the priest time as possible, and I use Ursul's Vortex to pin the priest aggressively to try and go for a Cyclone. I thought they were going to get pulled, but they didn't end up getting pulled by the Vortex, and so they stayed out of range of my in-cap roar, which again is just something you're going to have to feel and test. This is a strategy you can do when targets are getting close to you, is just go into stealth. This, if you see an enemy running at you to stun you and you're running away from them, you drop combat. Going into stealth whenever you drop combat is the best thing you can do. You reset focus frames, so the enemies have to remember to reallocate that, and they also just can't see you, so they don't know where you are and they can't crowd control you effectively. Here I go for a Cyclone on the Feral Druid. It was pretty risky to cast a Cyclone without fake casting, but because I have a defensive cooldown here in the Astral Shift, I felt safe going for Cyclones, and then I could just fall back on using that defensive cooldown if I fell behind. And now my team's going for more of a split DPS. My Warrior on the Priest, because the Priest is out of mana, and this prevents them from cleaving a little bit, but it also does open up the Warrior to more crowd control. Here I see the Hunter. Concussive Shot is a good sign that they want to trap you, so shape-shifting out of the Concussive Shot slow, avoiding the Hunter and trying to dodge the freezing trap is going to be very important during that time. Here I'm activating Adaptive Swarm because I see Bestial Wrath. This is going to increase the healing, and I root all of the pets, and I want to dispel mind games as soon as possible. This is going to prevent my Shaman from attacking and prevent them from healing as well, to give me some added support. In this position, I could have also used Ironbark. The main reason I think that I didn't is because I actually landed a Cyclone on the Feral Druid, but using Ironbark during Bestial Wrath is also a good idea against crowd control or cooldowns. The Feral Druid can attack in a Cyclone. I probably don't need any cooldowns. If I weren't able to get this Cyclone, I'm probably going to need a cooldown to deal with their Bestial Wrath, and that's just the common thing going through my mind. And then here, anytime I'm getting crowd controlled, I say I'm getting stunned, I'm getting cycloned, hey, get ready, maybe use a defensive, look at the game, right? Just pay attention defensively. You want to tell your teammates to do that whenever you're crowd controlled. And then after that, I try and get in. I see them switching over to my Warrior, a little bit more priority at least, but the other team is pretty much just in chaos with 10% Hunter, Aspect of the Turtle, 1% Mana Priest. They're really not in the best position. So all I have to do is make sure that I don't put all my eggs in one basket. Like for example, here, if I had used Ironbark or Send Ward on my Warrior, my Shaman would be in a lot of trouble, although we do end up panicking a bit and using the Astral Shift along with the Ironbark. You don't want to use these generally at the same time. This could have been prevented with kind of my old rule of thumb, where it's usually better to use a personal defensive cooldown before a healer's cooldown. So the Shaman uses Astral Shift here, and I hold on to Ironbark. That way I can use it later. But regardless, I cycle in the Feral Druid, and I tell my teammates, go hard on the Priest. The Feral can't heal, and I'm dropping Moonfire. You want to drop in whatever extra damage that you can really at this time if you're going to make a swap to the healer. And you can see once the Priest was out of mana, we started going after the Priest a little bit more. This could have been punished. It was a bit. You can see with the Shaman dipping quite low. So you need to worry about that. And also setting up drinks. At any point in this game, I could have snuck away and tried to go for a drink, and it probably would have been a really good idea. to do so, because my mana is basically run out at this point. So if you're losing on mana, you want to communicate that to your team. I'm going to go for a drink. That means that they need to focus on defense, right? So D stance, using healing surges, whatever defensive utility that the classes are that you're playing with, they need to be thinking about using those and activating those as much as possible, so that you can drink. And then you need to gauge whether or not you can be super greedy with how long you can drink. But regardless, I have a ton of fun on Resto Druid. It walks a nice balance of offense and defense. I really enjoyed playing this clone play style. I think a lot of Druids don't utilize Cyclone to this level. A lot of Druids will just focus on staying away from the fight and healing. If you're new to Druid or you're playing with spellcasters, I would recommend this to you. And the more comfortable you get with healing, then start flipping into this offensive gear where you're wild charging, you're stampeding, you're using Ursul's Vortex, and kind of split your learning up. Focus on healing, don't die. Once you've got that down, you're feeling a little bit more spiffy, then that's when you want to start kind of mixing in the higher level play. So it walks a good balance of being this simple, straightforward kind of heal bot and this complicated crowd control utility monster. It's a lot of fun, and I'm going to be playing a lot more. So if you'd like to follow it live, twitch.tv/Supatease. And I'm also going to be playing it in TBC and dominating just as hard over there. So if you're interested in following along with those journeys, then definitely check out my stream. Other than that, if you enjoyed the video, please leave it with a thumbs up. Comment down below with your thoughts and what you would like to see from the channel here. I'm doing my best to branch out onto more classes, more specializations, to give a wider range of perspective to all of you, and hopefully it's helpful. Other than that, thank you very much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.